Hey guys, we're on day 3 of our border tour right now. We started in California and we're heading to Brownsville, Texas. We are right now, earlier today we were in Gila Bend, Arizona. Right now we are in Nogales, Arizona. We're heading down towards the border right now. I'm actually going to bring in the car cam so you can see everybody right now. We have Julian in the back, Ozzy is right behind me, and Austin is driving right now. Austin, tell us exactly where we are right now.
Yeah, so we're about 23 miles outside of Nogales. That is about Nogales 60 miles south of Tucson, just for perspective. So where we were earlier today, the Oregon Hype Cactus National Monument, where we were down there on the border. To get over here, we had to go up north through Tucson and now back south again to head to this border town. So
we're going to give you a look right now. Actually, I'm going to flip it over to our street camera real quick.
Yeah, and we just passed a border checkpoint. It was on the other side so that people, coming in from Mexico would go through there. So what you're going to see here over the next 60 minutes, 90 minutes is we're going to go down into Nogales and we're going to try to see the pedestrian fence that's down there. We're going to look at the different types of fencing. We're going to see how close that fencing is to businesses, to homes, and to try to give you that perspective. We also have a night vision camera. Obviously it's getting dark. We may kind of look black and white when we pop up on screen. So when we get down there, we should be able to kind of peer through the fence and see what's on the other side using that night vision camera. And just for perspective, this is our borderreport.com tour, day 3 of 10. We are live on Next Star Nation websites, also on Facebook Live. And Anna over here, she has a laptop. She's going to try to monitor your comments. So if you have questions about where we are, questions about where we've been, maybe thoughts on where we're headed, which of course would be New Mexico and Texas, feel free to comment on those. We're going to try to navigate some of the different Next Star station Facebook pages to be able to look at those comments and interact with you here as we go through this experience. But Julian's actually pretty familiar with Nogales, so we should probably talk to him. Julian, based on your knowledge of Nogales and what you've seen down there, what can people expect to see as we get down there?
Yes, Austin, that's right. I'm a native of the border. I've been living here most of my life. I was down here in Nogales just a couple of weeks ago doing some pre-reporting for the stories. I met with a lot of people who are living very close to the border wall, and most of them are either immigrants themselves or the children of immigrants. And they have very ambivalent feelings about this. On the one hand, they empathize with the plight of migrants who come from Central America, as well as from Mexico, fleeing primarily poverty, violence, a whole series of bad stuff. But they also feel very strongly about their families being safe and secure, and many of them actually support some of the, at least part of the security down here on this part of the border.
And you were saying how close all the residents were to the border. Can you kind of talk about that a little bit more?
Yes, when I was here 2 weeks ago, I dropped by, I stopped by a neighborhood along International Boulevard. International Boulevard rides literally along the border wall. At times it is a paved road like any other city, but at times when it starts going up the hills it becomes a dirt road. And there's families that are literally living, have lived there for generations, about maybe 50 to 60 feet from the border. And some of them share their stories of growing up in that neighborhood and how the crime as well as the character of the neighborhood had changed over the decades as security has increased, as a border wall has replaced previous chain link fence.
Yeah, that's interesting. And a lot of the areas we've been so far, guys, there hasn't been much population on the U.S. side. The Mexican side has been pretty populated. There's been, large towns on that side, but with the exception of maybe some of the spots in San Diego, a lot of the stops we made in California, I mean, almost nothing on the U.S. side, and all the people on the Mexican side. That should all change tonight as we go into Nogales, which is a fairly populated area, and as Julian mentioned, so many people living that close to the fence. And you said this was previously, what type of fencing did they have down here, Julian?
They told me they had a chain link fence, like the type that you have in some around some prisons.
Is that what you saw in the backyards of the people who were living here, and that strip of residence that you were talking about?
Some of them have some old chain link as well, but by now most of them have your standard wooden picket fence. There was some chain link, but it's not very high. Security is no longer a concern, but they did share with me a lot of stories about things they witnessed in decades past before the enforcement. Some of those things were quite compelling, such as seeing chases right up their streets, up and down their streets, as Border Patrol chased immigrants who had just either broken through the chain link or somehow gotten over the chain link. In one case that I'll be glad to discuss further in detail with you, a person shared a story of a tunnel that was dug into his property from the other side, where migrants were smuggled and possibly drug smuggled as well.
Yeah, talk a little bit more about that. We actually just stopped a few minutes ago, and you were shedding light on that. You kind of hear about stuff like this, and it almost sounds like a made-for-TV movie or something like that, but you were saying it's a very real in this case.
Yeah, it's not made for TV, it's live on the border. I had the privilege of speaking to several neighbors who led me into their homes and shared their stories. Among them was a young gentleman in his maybe in his 30s, early 30s, who said that he was raised in that neighborhood and that the house there where he lives was actually built by his grandfather. His grandfather was an immigrant who came over to the United States from Mexico, and he actually went and fought in some of the wars. I don't have my notes with me. I believe it was either World War II or the Korean conflict. Anyway, this older gentleman, the grandfather, raised his family there, and eventually the family kind of moved out to other places like Tucson, like Phoenix, and they rented out the house. And when they rented out the house maybe about 10, 15 years ago, they came back to find that the tenants, in collusion with people in Mexico, had dug a tunnel into their property that went all the way into the Mexican side, into the Nogales, Sonora, Mexico. They were informed of this by police who discovered something funny going there, and eventually the immigration authorities were involved, and they realized, whoa, somebody built a tunnel from Mexico under the fence and into our front yard.
Gosh, and it makes you wonder how long that process would have taken to build a tunnel like that. Did they tell you how long they rented out the property before that was discovered?
Yes, they had rented out the property for I believe he said 3 months, around 3 months.
Oh my gosh, that's it.
Yeah, but this was before the current wall. The current wall, as we have been reporting, is made of steel bollards for the most part, which are dug very deep into the ground, and they're backed by concrete. Back in the day, when they had chain link, it was a lot easier to dig under the chain link. The chain link didn't have a very strong foundation like the current wall and barriers do have. They were apparently very efficient on the Mexican side in digging this tunnel.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and again, just to kind of recap, so we're 15 miles from Nogales. When we get down there, we're going to try to take you down by the port of entry. We're going to take you down by the fencing there, which Julian was just talking about, the pedestrian fencing, and try to get a look at that. Arizona is pretty interesting. In California, most of the border has a pedestrian fence. There's some very rough areas, some rough terrain where there is no fencing, because quite frankly, to cross that area would be nearly impossible. But for the most part, there's pedestrian fencing. As you move into Arizona, less than a third of the state has that fencing. There are vehicle barriers, which Sandra Sanchez actually went out today in the park where we were, went out with one of the tribes there, and they showed her some of the vehicle barriers. You know, these would keep cars out pretty easy for a human to maneuver around, though. An area, you know, where we went, which was down in Lukeville, there was fencing there. Anna, that was your report today, the expansion of that fencing. But even at that, Anna, we found one spot, you know, where there was really no fencing. The vehicle barrier was there. You stood right next to there and did a report. I mean, if you wanted to, you could have easily crawled through that.
Oh yeah, that was pretty crazy. That was right next to the Lukeville port of entry, and yeah, no one was stopping us. There was literally no signs like we've seen for the rest of the border. When you get near the border wall, there's usually signs that says it's an enforcement zone, and there's usually either a paved road or a dirt road for Border Patrol to actually patrol on. And that specific area that we were in didn't have that at all, so we were actually able to walk straight up to the fence. And what I thought was really interesting was literally sitting maybe 3 or 4 feet on the other side of the fence from us was Mexican military. There was we saw a few trucks drive by on the other side of the fence, but there was a large military presence on the Mexican side of the border fence, as well as on the U.S. side, where there, you know, Border Patrol was very present in that area.
Yeah, they were very present, but you have to admit it was very different than what we experienced in California, where if we would have walked anywhere close to that wall, bam, they would have been there in a second. I mean, today
we walked up close and they had their eyes on us for sure.
Yeah,
but not as they weren't as active to tell us to stop for sure. Yeah.
And when we initially got to that fencing, I think I was kind of walking out as you guys were getting your equipment. The Mexican law enforcement or military, we aren't quite sure, on the other side of that fence. When he saw me walk up, he stood up, he blew a whistle, and he stayed up for a while, you know, kind of keeping his eye on us. So it was interesting because in California, on that Mexican side, you saw very little security, very little enforcement, and people all over the place. On the U.S. side, you know, I mean, there were Border Patrol everywhere, law enforcement everywhere. You know, not quite the case today when we were at that Lukeville port of entry.
What was also interesting was when we were driving through the national park. Again, we were at Oregon Pipe Cactus National Park, which was just south of...
Easy for you to say.
Just south of Gila Bend. You got it eventually. And when we were driving through the park, I mean, for acres and acres, it's literally just desert and very, very beautiful, but not a lot there. So we got closer and closer to the border, and we started seeing signs that were warning people who were walking through the park about illegal immigration or smuggling, and just warning the people who were visiting in that area. There were some road closure signs, but it wasn't really strict. We kind of were able to get around them, and they kind of welcomed
with permission. Yeah.
Right. They, you know, National Park Service came up to us while we were there, standing outside the sign. It literally said, you know, this road is closed for border infrastructure construction. It said it closed down on August 22nd. We were taking video of the sign when they came up, kind of explained what we were doing there. We were journalists, and asked if we could get a little bit closer to the wall, and they said sure, you know, at our own discretion, and we did. Yeah. So we went around that. We went down this dirt road for about, how long would you say that was?
Maybe a mile. I mean, it was very windy, but maybe a mile or so.
And in the distance, you could kind of see where the wall was, but we knew that's where the expansion project of the wall was happening. So we wanted to get as close as we could, and we were literally able to get up right next to it. But again, at that point, it was different from what we saw over at the Lukeville port of entry, because there was, again, that enforcement zone right in front of the fence that we were not allowed to approach. So we had to stay back a little bit, but only because there was construction vehicles coming by, and they were, you know, we saw a concrete truck drive by. We saw a couple pickup trucks drive by.
Yeah, a lot of construction.
So there's a lot of activity in that area on the U.S. side, construction-wise, but on the Mexican side, you know, we heard school, you know, kids playing in a playground, and we saw some horses and people just walking by very close to the fence there. So it was just really interesting to see just how different it is on both sides of the fence in every place that we've been so far.
Yeah, most definitely. Julian, talk a little bit about, you know, very strict in California, it seems like. Maybe not as much in the parts of Arizona we were today. what's been your experience, covering the border and the fencing in El Paso, and your ability to kind of access it?
Speaking strictly from experience, I can tell you that the level of stress on the part of the guardians of the border varies sector by sector, and this is very complex. It has to do with a lot of things. It has to do with the dynamics of the area. It has to do with the history and what's going on the other side. What I've always said is that we cannot tell the story of the border by just focusing on one side. We got to know what's going on the other side. In El Paso Juarez, for instance, we have a very pronounced cartel drug trafficking activity. So it's understandable why there might be a lot closer attention placed to who gets close to the fence, to the wall. Whereas in other places, there's not that kind of history. They're not very active routes for either drugs or migrants. So the approach by authorities could be a little bit more relaxed, but still vigilant. I mean, today they have all kinds of technology. Look at this truck. We have infrared technology. We have cameras. They've been doing the very same thing for decades. So it varies sector to sector.
Yeah, that's a great point, because the area where we were today, there wasn't much population on the Mexican side, that Lukeville area. So perhaps the drug issues on the Mexican side, weren't as prominent as they are in Juarez or Tijuana or those other places. So, that would make sense. But I never at any point that I can recall, Anna, and I could be wrong, saw signs that said, watch out for illegal immigration and smuggling. And today, everywhere you went, those signs were around.
No, I think I saw about a dozen signs, and they're all different signs, which is really interesting. And some of them were clearly just put up because of the wall construction, and so that was pretty interesting to see. But I hadn't seen that at all before today.
And when we were driving down that path you talked about, at one point, we had said, let's look out for clothing, let's look out for water bottles, let's look out for anything we can. And we saw a black piece of plastic. Okay, we're gonna
exit. Let's see if we can work it.
We're good. My thing says go to 8, but I'm also not.
Exit 1A.
We will do that. Okay, guys. So y'all are coming with us here. We are headed to exit 1A, which is probably 8 miles away, and that's where we'll see.
Ozzy, how far away does it say that we are from the border right now? 5 miles from the border. Okay.
Yeah, and we'll give you guys a look at it as soon as we get down there and do everything we can to give you the best perspective, utilizing the technology that we have. But yeah, so we stop, and Anna was like, oh, we need to grab this, or we need to take a picture of it. It's a water jug. And I'm looking at it, and it's a black piece of plastic. And I'm like, this is an oil container. This is not a water jug. I've been to the grocery store. I've been to Walmart. Water doesn't come in a plastic jug. And then Border Patrol came up later. We had a great conversation with him. He couldn't go on camera because he didn't have clearance, but he gave us a lot of context. And he confirmed your original suspicion that indeed that was a water jug.
And he was saying that it's black because it doesn't melt in the sun. And I think hold on one second, I think I have it around down here.
Uh-oh. Digging deep down there. She's either going to find that old Subway sandwich down there, or earlier today. So we're doing live shots. we just have to tell people this, because the experience is we have to keep moving. I mean, Julian's been back there
24/7. It really feels like.
Julian's been back there writing stories. I've been up here driving and communicating with our stations, doing whatever we can. Ozzy's been back there coordinating everything Anna hears in her ear, and quite frankly, when Anna had a 5-minute break, she was muting her audio and eating a Subway sandwich.
Yep. So you gotta do what you gotta do, you know what I mean?
But
But let me show you back to
right. back to the real stuff.
Yeah. This is we picked it up. We ended up picking it back up because Border Patrol was like, yeah, take it if you want to. It's really sturdy. And it's really, really thick. And they were saying it's these black water jugs, and you would see them all across the park. I saw a thing about 5, especially when we got closer to the border wall. And what they were saying is that people who are crossing over into the U.S. typically use these because they don't melt in the sun, and it's just so hot in Arizona, and the terrain is just so rough that they actually end up taking 2 of the jugs, and they were saying that they usually find them with a yarn attached, or attached around the 2 jugs left in the right next to the wall or left wherever near the cactus. But that was pretty interesting, and we saw a lot of that, and we saw a lot of wrappers left behind and everything. But we don't know if that was from the construction crews or if that was from someone else. But they did confirm that those jugs are very common and they're used because it is hot here in Arizona. I will tell you that. Yeah,
and in that area too, where we saw kind of the hole in the wall that someone could simply slip through. I saw footprints over there on that side, and there's really no reason why there would be foot traffic unless you're a journalist like we are, trying to get perspective of the wall. In fact, some national park guys came over and said, "How'd you even get over here?"
Right.
We just kind of followed a dirt path over there, but we also saw, shoes over there. And again, we don't know where those shoes came from, but it would certainly make sense.
It was actually at that point where there was the grouping of the razor wire just laying right outside the fence. It was that was not. So we were told that part of the border wall, where near the Loopville port of entry, was actually fixed up in November. So that's not part of the new border wall expansion project. But we did see. Oh, let me see.
Yeah, I'm going to give you my phone because I took a picture of that razor wire, and you're going to have to shuttle back a little bit there.
Yeah, here we go.
Maybe you can show it to the camera.
I don't know if you guys are going to be able to. Let's see if you guys can kind of see it. I'm not sure.
Yeah, not really.
Not really.
You get an idea though.
So it was just groupings of this razor wire. We're told it's different from barbed wire, and it's because barbed wire is for wildlife and animals, and this is what we're seeing all looped around the fence for miles, I would say. But there was just a pile of it right outside the Loopville port of entry, just sitting there. I don't know if it was eventually going to look like what we were seeing on the fence, or if it was there to fix it up or what, but it was kind of just laying there in a pile.
Yeah, and we originally saw wire like that in Los Algodones, I think I got it right, yesterday when we rolled through there, and that's really where California, Arizona, and Mexico meet, and that was the first time we kind of saw this smaller pedestrian fence lined with that wire. Just to kind of recap, borderreport.com tour. We're on Facebook Live right now, and we are headed into Nogales. This is a border town in Arizona, as Ozzy just mentioned, less than a mile from the border. And Julian, again, you've been here, you're familiar with Nogales. As we come into town and approach the border and this port of entry, what should we see as we come down here?
Well, believe it or not, you're going to see a very typical small town in America. There's Burger Kings, there's Jack in the Boxes.
I saw a Starbucks sign a second ago.
Absolutely, they have Starbucks as well. And the only thing that's a little different, I guess, would be the makeup of the population. Most people here are Hispanic. Like I mentioned, they are the the grandchildren of immigrants, and they're fully integrated, Americanized, and they have various opinions on immigration.
If you want to take that front cam, Anna, we'll give people a perspective as we come into town. Should I go 1A or exit? Okay. Got you. Yeah, and Ozzy was kind of checking the route we would go, and what we're going to try to do is just take you up and down this.
We got those lights. That's a border right there. I'm going to turn right. I'm going to see that's the Mexican side. All those lights.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So yeah, Ozzy's saying the lights that you see. Literally right here.
Yeah, here we are, folks.
You're right at the wall.
Right there,
go straight to the wall and then make a right.
So this is Mexico right in front of us.
Yeah, that's International Boulevard.
International, right, yeah.
And we're going to take a moment here just so you can see this. I want to make sure we have our security behind us, so we're good. I'm going to get to the roof cam here too, and Anna or Ozzy, if you can just kind of check to make sure there's nobody behind us. But we have the ability to zoom in here.
You can see just people are walking right there.
Yeah, if you want to take that shot, Anna.
Yeah, let me do that real quick. 1 second. There we go.
I want to also try to just come over here. We'll see what we can.
Yeah, now I'm actually seeing exactly what you're talking about, Julian. This is, usually this is an enforcement zone that you can't really drive near. Oh, is that to her left? Is that Border Patrol or is that?
I don't know.
Is that
there
a white
is an
vehicle?
officer.
I don't think there's anybody behind us.
But I don't know who that is.
Looks like maybe a bus stop right here. And a kid there at the fence. Yep, we got a dance off. on the other side of the fence.
That guy was what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, I see. But yeah, no, I'm just trying to give people perspective on the other side.
Yeah.
If you want to take the front cam, we'll
Yeah.
move over
We'll do the
and see what we
street.
can get with.
But this is kind of what we've been seeing really all along the border. I mean, it's very active on the Mexico side versus the U.S. side. There's actually a town on this side from other. Oh, there you go. Are you
Our
taking the front
signal's
cam?
going in and out. Yeah,
That's just we're good.
I think we have Border Patrol coming to just kind of check on us real quick.
Yeah, look there. Yep. Yeah, it is Border Patrol.
Yeah, our security guys will probably talk to them. But you see that. Let's head that way. What I'm going to do is turn the camera to my left here, so we can, when we drive down that path, we should just kind of be able to follow along, Anna.
Yeah. So
Here.
can we take the?
I can
one
go to the
second.
right, guys?
Go to the right, please.
Okay.
Right. Oh, you can see Border Patrol talking right now.
Yeah,
Let's take
let's-
the.
Okay,
should we-
here's the
should we
here's
do
the
straight?
homes that I was talking about to your
Which
to your
one?
right.
To our right, Julian?
Yeah, right here. That's where people, Americans live. Right
Okay,
here
so
to
he's
your right.
talking about to the right, what you're looking at right now on our
Okay,
Facebook feed.
are we able to, let me turn off the strobe here. What I'll do is turn this,
This
is that
on?
lit over there? Just want to make sure people
You
can
might
see
be
it.
able to park along the curb to your right.
Okay. Let's try to do that. Or at least get in an okay spot here. Just to give you perspective again, you see the fencing, that's probably our security right there. Right here to our left. Anna, can you take the camera I'm on?
Roof cam? Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's that fencing. We're going to come in front of the car real quick and bring you guys around. You see that pedestrian fencing right there. Julian, why don't you kind of describe what we're seeing here? And you said right on this side, homes.
Yeah, to the left of the vehicle, we have the new border fencing, which includes the steel bollards.
Mm-hmm.
They're very durable, very deep, very difficult, if not impossible, to cut. You have them set in concrete, which is deep into the ground.
Mm-hmm.
There are also probably hidden sensors, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have your regular street that's used every day, not only by the Border Patrol,
Uh-huh.
but by the neighbors. To our right, the right of our vehicle, we see a lot of cars parked, and they belong to the residents of this neighborhood in Nogales, Arizona. Some of them live in apartments, most of them live in houses. The houses are pretty old. They've been standing here in various shapes and forms. But
Yeah,
they
the
have
one
been-
we're looking at right here, unclear if it would be occupied or not, but not in the best shape.
Yeah, most of them are older homes. Some of them have been remodeled, modernized.
Uh-huh.
Others retain the look from the 70s or 60s, or some even from the 50s.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to try to move the camera down, and then that way
Yeah.
we can just kind of follow along the wall
Yeah, let me too.
as we navigate here. Just
And
keep-
this is kind of the same type of wall that we were seeing over in Oregon Pipe Cactus National Monument.
right.
I mean, way taller though. It was only 12 to 15 feet, but this is what, 30 feet tall?
Yeah, probably 30 feet tall, and right now you guys probably can't
Here,
see
I'm
the
gonna go
razor
out.
wire. Yeah, if you want to move it to where we can
Let's
see
see.
behind us just a little bit too,
Yeah.
or if you want to
I'm gonna
take
do
it out.
the
Yeah.
street so you guys don't get nauseous as I try to.
Yeah, and we
Do
can
this
see it up in
right.
front of us too. You know, interesting right here if we can. I'm just gonna look. I mean, you see that razor wire down at the bottom too. I would presume because of all the poles and everything, the thought process would be that may be easier to climb.
Yeah. Oh, and then do you see this all down here? And there's
Yeah,
the
right.
groupings?
And that's exactly that wire you were talking about earlier, Anna.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to kind of shine the light over there.
We're now on the roof cam.
Okay.
Right here.
Yeah, and you get a sense for that.
Oh,
Yeah.
is that someone in the street up there?
I don't know. I don't see. Yeah, it is.
there is. Okay.
If you want to take front
We'll
cam
do
there.
street cam. There's just people hanging out right now.
And what is this? Is this a vehicle barrier? Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that what this is, Julian?
Julian, is that to our left? Is this a vehicle barrier?
Yes.
So yeah, you see.
So before this fence with the barbed wire, the vehicle barrier is all that there was. Is that correct, Julian?
There was also a chain link.
Okay.
Let's go real quick. I want to turn it back over this way. Let's see what we can see to our left here. It's hard to get that
Here,
wide.
This is as far back I think as it goes.
Yeah, we'll just kind of take the top of that. If you want to take that just for a second. But we're going to continue. Yeah, I just want to be able for you guys to be able to see this vehicle barrier. So obviously that would be easy for someone to jump and move around on. But then that fence there.
But this fence, I mean, there is more razor wire here than I've seen on any other part of the entire fence. I mean, this is
absolutely.
a lot of razor wire.
What's going on is that we're basically in the downtown of both cities.
Right.
This neighborhood is just south of the downtown Nogales, Arizona. And on the other side, we're seeing downtown Nogales, Sonora.
Yeah. And on this side right here, though, I mean, not much activity, right? I mean...
Yeah, that's one of the things that the neighbors were telling me about. One of the reasons they like living here is because, unlike in most American neighborhoods, which are like the neighborhood to our right, very quiet at night, very tranquil, there's always a lot of activity on the Mexican side. People actually walking as opposed to just getting in their cars to drive. Walking, singing, buying food and drinks and stuff, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to back us up here real quick. There's a big light here.
I do want to ask, Julian, is this, do we see this in any other part of the border that you know of?
It's hard to tell because the border is very, very extensive, almost 2,000 miles. But I don't see this in El Paso, and I certainly didn't see it in California.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I'm going to get out real quick just to give you perspective on the height. Ozzy, if you want to take this, feel free to add some perspective.
Yeah, here, Ozzy, I'm going to grab you.
I'll take, you have my phone, right? I'll just take a couple pictures while we're out there too.
Yeah.
This will give you a perspective on height.
Yeah, so
Yeah, I think that
Austin's
was
going to
about
stand. How tall would you say?
About 18 feet.
18 feet?
Approximately, yeah.
Okay, but this is a lot of razor wire that we're seeing over here. Okay, so Austin, how tall would you say? Hold on.
Austin's about 5.
Austin, how tall are you? How tall are you? Okay, so he's about 6 feet tall. So that's, yeah. I would say that's about 30 feet.
3 of him.
Yeah.
Well, that would be 18.
18 feet? Well, I clearly can't do my math right.
Sorry.
Yeah, so he's about 6 feet tall. We're just showing you just a comparison of how tall this fence is here in Nogales, Arizona. This is one of the towns that we're able to get real close up next to. This is a residential street. And again, if you are just tuning in right now, we are on day 3 of our border tour here in Arizona. It's a 10-day tour, but we are showing you the town of Nogales, Arizona, and Nogales, Mexico is right on the other side that we're looking through at the other side of this wall right now.
Right, yeah. And so we're going to prepare to go back down that way. Let me see if I can get a shot just to give you guys a different perspective. So what do we think, 30 feet on that one?
About
18.
Oh, really? Yeah, maybe. That'd be 3 Austins.
That's exactly how we figured it.
Yeah.
If you want to keep going to your right, you're going to see a little bit of a change in the terrain.
Okay.
Right here we have a well, if not a paved street, at least with some caliche, with some rock. You're going to see something more natural as we go up the hill.
Yeah, and we're able here to see into Mexico.
And it looks like another really active neighborhood right
You
in
see
Mexico
somebody
as
down
well.
there. Take the info.
Let's see. We're going to take the, you mean the...
Yeah,
This
our
camera?
night vision. I don't know where it's pointed. Are we able to see that?
Ozzy, where is our night camera pointing?
You're right.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm
so
going
let's
to
go.
back to the roof cam so you guys can kind of see a little bit inside.
So we have Border Patrol right here.
Oh yeah, we're going to go straight ahead. So that's Border Patrol right here.
Yeah, so we'll just go around
But this
him.
street looks like it goes down for quite some time.
Yeah, keep going. There's some houses down there.
Okay.
How big is this town, would you say, Julian?
About the size of Las Cruces, New Mexico.
Okay.
Oh, is that
Wow,
a road
so
down
look
there?
at this. Yeah, you could
Okay.
probably go down. Let's go
I'm
down
just
there.
making sure. Let's look
Right,
into
and
Mexico
remember,
here.
Austin, we're still in the U.S., so that's an American road up ahead.
Yes. I just want to get a look
Yeah, look at
We're
this.
able to see here into Mexico if you want to take that shot,
Yeah.
Anna.
Oh, no.
That was Anna. It's
That
okay.
was the wrong camera. I'm sorry, guys.
And yeah, just kind of looking down into the city. I'm going to turn and look. This is a kind of a steep road in front of me. I just want to see what it looks like before we go down there. We're all right.
There we go.
Okay, if you want to take the front camera.
All right, we're going to go to the street camera. That's what we're looking at right now. And to your left, that's Mexico. That's Nogales, Mexico.
Yeah.
And are you sure this part is, yeah.
I think so.
We'll
We're
find
about
out.
to find out.
We're about to find out.
Oh,
You
here
might
we
want
go.
to turn, make your first right turn when you can.
Our first right turn?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I don't think we should continue going there.
Why not?
Oh, let's maybe loop back around.
Okay.
Would that make
let's do
sense? Yeah, this is not necessarily a paved. Okay.
that. Yeah, we stop actually real quick right here. We're looking right into Mexico.
Yeah.
And it looks like that's a house.
Yeah.
And so there's houses lining the U.S. side right here, and there's houses lining the Mexico side of the fence right here as well.
So Julian, you suggest we maybe go back and get to a main road, or should we go back up that way?
No, let's go back.
Okay.
Let's
Well,
go
yeah,
back.
for the people who are tuning in, they're actually starting to talk about the tunnels again. Can you kind of touch on that when you were talking to the people who lived on this street?
Yes, before there was a steel bollard fence here, there was chain link. This was a couple of decades ago. And some of the houses here on the U.S. side, there was actually some tunnels that were dug from the Mexican side. I spoke to a gentleman who lives in one such house. It's been in his family forever, and they rented it out to some people who, from Mexico. And then they were alerted by authorities that there was some police movement here. Obviously, it was when some migrants who came over the tunnel were noticed and were caught. And then the police were also called because a residence was involved. And that's how this family learned that their home, that a tunnel had been dug from Mexico into their home.
See right there on the front,
Let's see, look at the
a
street
U.S.
view.
Border Patrol sign there. We'll try to get close where you can see it, and then danger, do not enter.
And if you're
Yeah,
just joining in right here, what we just looked at with the sign on it, this used to be, or this still I guess would be, a vehicle barrier. Julian, if you want to kind of talk about that as well.
Yeah, I was about to give my opinion on this barrier. This barrier obviously is not made to stop vehicles from the other side. There's a very sturdy steel fence. My experience, speaking from experience, I would say that this is a vehicle barrier to prevent trucks, SUVs, and cars from getting too close to the wall and maybe receiving packages that are lobbed or thrown from the other side. And that also could explain why we have so much razor barbed wire. I mean,
Was the mesh that's on the outside of this wall, has that always been there? Because I know that they were talking about when we were over in Lukeville earlier today, that they added that after, and especially when we were in Friendship Park, they were saying that they added that there so you couldn't pass things through the wall. Is this always been in this part?
I was here a few years ago and I did not see so much concertina wire.
Yeah, and that's what I'm calling mesh, and that, yeah.
Right. And we see somebody walking there on the streets. Were we able to move the thermal camera around?
Ozzy, I'm not sure how to do that.
We can get that going here. We see somebody here in their yard over here. Let's see if she'll talk real quick. Hold
Yeah.
on. Hi, how are you? We're just journalists kind of documenting this area over here. So, how are you? We're just journalists kind of documenting the area over here along the wall. So, yeah, do you have any experiences, good or bad, you know, living this close to the fence? Yeah, you feel like there's good security? Yeah, have you heard anything about tunnels up and down here historically?
We've been here for like
8 years? 6 tunnels? Yeah. Right. Yeah, a lot of surveillance, he was saying. So, thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Yeah, he was saying he's in the 8 years he's been here, maybe come across 6 tunnels, and he also said there's regularly commotion under his mom's bathroom. So that's interesting.
I will
No, there's
say,
a couple reasons why one
missed
could.
that part of
Mice?
that conversation.
No, that's what
Rats?
he goes, there's regularly commotion under my mom's bathroom. So
Did he explain
either there's
why?
a tunnel under his mom's bathroom, or I mean,
It's
there's
probably
a couple
just
other
mice.
reasons why there could be commotion.
It's probably just mice.
Yeah, very well could be.
Okay, let
So-
me kind of move the roof cam for you guys.
What is this right here on the wall?
Yeah, I saw this the last time I was here. It's like a
Let's-
flower offering.
Let's
I'm not
see.
sure who
Hold on,
placed
let me
it
see if I
there.
can get that.
Yeah, come
It's
down.
mostly symbolic
There you
to
go.
symbolize the plight of people who come
So
across
if
or
we can
Yeah,
or
so
die
you're going to see the
across.
top of our roof here too,
Let's see
but
if
kind
we
of
can
bear
kinda
with
zoom
us.
in.
Yeah. And explain that one more time, Julian.
Yeah, I saw it here the last time I was in Nogales. It looks like a symbolic flower offering. These are typically placed there by activists to mark the plight of the immigrants who died trying to come over.
Yeah, very interesting.
And we'll see that up and down the border, you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah, we've seen too, along the roads we've traveled, different crosses. And a lot of times we'll see these like in Texas off major highways if somebody has died in a vehicle accident. But some of these are off the road and in fields, and you can't help but wonder if that marks, someone who died in the crossing process, or as you mentioned, Julian, maybe it's just symbolic for the situation. I'm not sure. What is this right here?
Should we do this? Which way? I don't know what you're looking at.
I don't know. Is this a two-way street?
That's where we
okay.
came in on, right? Yeah. We'll do
All
the
right.
street view so you can kind of get a look at what we're
Yeah,
doing.
so what we're going to do, Julian, do you think we should just hang a right here and try to go to the other side?
To Mexico?
No. Does this go into Mexico? I want to continue
Where
in
is
Nogales.
where's the port of entry in this area?
It's to your right, and then you just keep walking south.
Let's do it.
Oh, well, we'll just see what happens.
Let me try
Yeah,
that.
when you see the Burger King, turn left.
Okay. So this right here, you're saying is Mexico right back here.
Yeah, I just showed it on the roof cam.
Well, there's a parking lot, then there's like a bus company or a taxi company, and then there's the entry into Mexico.
So in this area, like we saw over in San Isidro, do people typically live in Mexico and commute over here for work, or vice versa? I mean, do we see a lot of that in this area?
Not so much in this area. It has to do with the economic activity. Obviously, San Diego is an economic giant. El Paso also has a lot of activity. So you see a lot more commuters from Mexico, legal commuters for the most part,
Yeah, I'm gonna do the street
coming to work on the north side of the border. In smaller towns like Nogales, you don't see it as much, but you still see it.
view. Okay.
Yeah, Anna, up on that hill, it looks like that may
Let's
be
see.
a wall structure up there. Is that what we're seeing up there?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, hold on. Let me zoom in for you
Yeah,
guys.
no problem. Yeah. So again, we're in Nogales, Arizona.
Right up
which-
there.
Yeah, as Julian has mentioned and detailed to us, the town that butts right up against the pedestrian wall. Julian, would it make sense for me to go right and go over here?
The windows are tinted so dark that I can't see.
I mean, it looks like there's no one over here to my right, is there, Anna?
No, you
There-
can.
You
Nope.
go to the-
Okay.
Yeah.
Just our security, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's go down here and kind of see where this takes us.
Oh, there's the port of entry.
Okay.
Block away.
Oh yeah.
front
Right.
of
So
us.
right. Let me try the
Yeah.
street cam. Yeah, that's the port of entry right
You
here.
see a sign there.
It says Mexico only.
Yeah, and actually your
Actually, I'm
camera
gonna do-
here
Oh,
is right
we'll
on
go-
it.
Yeah, we'll do the roof cam. Yeah.
Mexico
only. So that's. And there's actually a lot of activity right out here, especially for what time is it right now? Almost 7:30 or something like that.
7:30.
7:30. Yeah,
On a Tuesday?
on a Tuesday. It says you can't. That other sign right there. I'm gonna see if I can read it. It says you can't bring firearms.
Yeah, Mexico has very, very strict firearms law. In fact, you need a permit from the army just to possess one. And as far as I know, there are no factories that manufacture guns in Mexico for sale to individuals, only for the army.
You want to take
Interesting.
front cam real
Yeah,
quick?
we'll do the street cam.
Okay, we're going to head up here to Morley.
So did the train track that we just crossed over? Does that go into Mexico?
There are trains that come and go into Mexico. Yes, of
How
course.
does that work if you're going from if you're
Don't go right.
crossing over?
Well, you
Don't go
know,
right.
you could tell I was thinking about it, even though I see the big sign that says "Do
Don't
not
go
enter."
right.
Am I on a one-way? No.
Hopefully not.
No. There's a speed limit sign
Okay.
pointing at me. Okay. But again, guys, we are in Nogales, just trying to give you a perspective of the pedestrian fencing here. We talked to a resident who says he feels really safe down here. But just as Julian detailed for us earlier, as it relates to tunnels, he talked about experience with tunnels and hearing about tunnels and people he knew who had dealt with tunnels. Ozzy, I have maybe lost perspective on where we are in relation to the border.
Let's loop back around. Yeah.
Make a U-turn.
Yeah, we're going north right now.
Okay.
So
Or to go to the left, maybe?
yeah, let's go left and then maybe
We navigate here.
hang a left and
'Kay.
whenever we can.
Yeah, I was thinking we were kind of going along it, but I
Meantime, as you can see, Nogales, Arizona is a very peaceful town, and
Right.
that's kind of a trend along the border. Most of the American towns along the border are very peaceful, very orderly, very crime-free for the most part.
I'm trying to get the roof cam so you guys can actually get a good glimpse of the town.
Pick a left again.
This is a one-way to the right, so I'll take a right and maybe loop back around.
Yes. Go
Okay.
right.
Julian, how big would you say this town is?
Like I said, it's about the size of Las Cruces, New
Straight to the
Mexico.
left.
I'm from New Mexico,
Oak
so that's
Street.
my only reference.
Okay.
Can't tell if this is Oak
Let's do
Street.
the street cam so you guys can see. I think that was it.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll go the next left. Yeah, so again, if you guys are just joining us, this is day 3 of our border tour. We started in California and we're heading to Brownsville, Texas. So we are currently in Nogales, Arizona, kind of just checking out the area and seeing how close we were able to get to the fence in this area. This
Oh, I
part
thought we could cut through there, but
of the border.
I guess we
yeah,
can
there we go.
not.
And we were able to get very close, actually.
Yeah, and we'll try to get back over in that area. Ozzy's in the back seat trying to help us navigate, obviously, an area we aren't too familiar with. Anna, you had mentioned, people being out at night. You see a park over there.
Yeah, there was kids walking down
Yeah.
the street right behind us with a basketball.
Got a little
And you can see,
basketball game over there.
There's a little
people out
track
walking.
right in front of us. People are just walking around. So it does seem really safe, this town at least, that Julian was talking about. Or just a nice, quiet town.
It's back to the port of entry.
Okay.
But there are still a lot of border patrol here. We saw a couple cars when we were getting really close to the fence. So,
Yeah, just, I guess, let me know if we want to try to go, what would it be, north or south here? East or west? We're going west right now, aren't we?
no, we would be going south because that's the border.
Jeez. All right, I'm going to listen to y'all then. Yeah, that would make sense, right? We're going to go west into, no. But yeah, you had mentioned earlier, Ozzy,
Left on Park Street.
on Park Street, okay? Yeah, you had mentioned earlier that there'd be opportunities both east and west, perhaps, to be able to
This will
see.
take us east of the city.
Okay, so we're going to go left on Park.
I'll give you. Okay, so straight ahead is where we were just a couple
This
minutes
is
ago,
Park.
where there was the port of entry right ahead.
Okay. Or is that Park right
no,
up there?
I think you should go one more and then hang
Okay.
left. And then when you were contemplating going right, we should actually go right.
Yeah, go one more.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
But no, that said do not enter, right?
No,
No,
it
you
did.
should be okay.
Yeah.
Go, it'll be left on Park, right on
Mm.
Rollins.
Okay,
If there is a do not enter sign, we won't enter.
right.
All right, left on Park.
I'm going to come back inside here.
Yeah.
Just to kind of recap, we are live on Nexstar websites across the country. We're live on Facebook Live. Day 3 of our borderreport.com tour. We've been through California. We are now in Arizona. Today we were down at the, help me out with the full name of it because it's like
Oregon
7
Pipe
words.
Cactus National Monument.
There you go, looking at the fencing down there.
Mm-hmm.
Very different here, though. Very secure, large pedestrian fence,
Mhm.
heavy border patrol presence.
Yeah.
And then, as Julian's detailed for us, people living right along that fence. So we're gonna do our best to.
And actually, there's not. Tomorrow we're talking to people who are cattle ranchers in this area, so it's not just a little downtown area. There's also Nogales is also very rural and has quite a few ranches right outside of it. Yeah, if you go left right here, we're gonna give you a street cam.
We're looking for Robbins Street.
Is that it?
So
Right
that's
here?
right here.
Right
yeah.
here to the right. Yeah. Thank you,
Okay.
Ozzy.
Not gonna go down the train tracks though.
Please
So
don't go
Julia,
down
I'm
the
actually
train
really
tracks.
interested in what how it works when the trains go from Mexico to the U.S. and vice versa.
Well, mostly we're talking about the movement of merchandise, so the vehicle really doesn't really matter. It does get inspected on both sides of the border, and that's pretty common to see in most border
Border Patrol in
metroplexes.
front of us.
Yeah, this is Border Patrol right here.
So this, Ozzy, perhaps is the fencing.
This is a border wall right here.
Yeah, this is.
Okay.
In front of us and
Yeah, and this
Well,
looks.
this is a different type of wall that we've seen.
Yeah. Pretty different. I
this
guess
is, this is a pedestrian.
Oh, so
like a
this
walkway.
is a Customs and Border Protection.
Yeah, it looks like it's perhaps part
Yeah.
of a port of entry.
Let's go down this way to
Yeah,
the right.
it's an American facility.
Yeah, so but out still on the top of it to the right. Let me see if I can do the.
You don't
cam.
think we're gonna
We
make it up
still
this hill?
see
Why
that
not?
is- There's
Yeah.
still a lot of that razor wire. Oh, look at all this right here.
Yeah, let's give people perspective
Yeah,
of that.
I'm trying to.
And then we can kind of take them a look up this hill too.
Let's see if I can flip the roof cam around for us real quick.
Yeah.
There we go. So this is kind of what we're looking at right here. To our right.
And Julian, it looks like to our right as we look up the hill, apartments, housing, stuff like that. Are you able to see through the wall there, guys? Are those
Yeah, no.
people right
So
there
they're actually
looking at us?
Let me go see. Hold on.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, both cities' downtowns are just joined together,
I'm gonna
separated by the
drop
wall.
this out.
Yeah, let's see. Anna's gonna go get a look out there real quick. Let's see if we can kind of follow her as she goes over there. No. Oh yeah, there's a lady over. Well, but yeah, those were not people up on the wall. What is it that's right on the other side right there? Can you tell? All right. It's a dumpster.
But there's no mesh here on this wall. Why?
Well, I mean, it's covered
It's-
in razor wire. Is that what you'd think, Julian?
Well, and also,
Then the anti-climb at the top, the last 5 feet at the top, you notice?
yeah, they're bent inward.
Here, Ozzy, take my microphone and explain that.
Yeah, so what I'm seeing right now is about 12 feet of a wall, the barrier and the razor wire, and then right above it I see about 5 feet worth of the anti-climb fence, so which is kind of the newer part of the construction. And if you can zoom in upper right around your 1 o'clock position, that's going to be like some 3 homes that are like stacked back to back, top of each other.
What do you want to? There we go.
There you go. They,
Yep. Thanks for that, Ozzy. And we've seen throughout, the terrain, the wall having to go up large hills, and that's what we're seeing here as well. Try to.
So is this to our right here? Is this a pedestrian walkway? I mean, what is this
No.
right here?
it says no trespassing.
But it looks like
No, it's the same type. It's the same type of vehicle barrier
This is a
that we
vehicle
saw.
barrier
We saw
right
back there.
interesting.
Yeah, the point is for vehicles not to get too close to the fence, so as to not be able to receive stuff that might be lobbed from the other side.
Yeah.
This is reserved for Border Patrol access.
Yeah. I'm gonna go to our thermal cam just to see what it shows. Yeah, and it's showing the razor wire there. Ozzy, do you have an idea of where exactly it's pointed? Or what do we do? Is this what we do to?
Yeah,
I'll
just
close the door.
Yeah, let me go back up to our roof shot where we can see the top of that wall there.
Yes, again, we're in Nogales, Arizona right now.
Yeah,
And we're trying to
thermal
get the-
appears to be.
were you able to pan it?
No, we'll take a look at it. our issue right now is we can't really preview it. So I guess this would be, unless we, is there a way that since that goes up and around that we can go get that wall on the other side, or does it continue to go up a hill?
Yeah, what's on the other side of this hill right here?
Because if not, we could go back to the area where we were earlier.
Yeah, maybe try heading right on East Street.
East Street, okay. We'll
Go
take a
about
look for that.
2 blocks to the right.
Anna, you seeing any comments and questions coming?
Let me read through these right now. Hold on
East,
1 second.
you said?
Yes.
Okay,
so to
perfect.
the right. Go up until you hit
Well, it's dark.
Short to the right.
Okay. Yeah. This looks much like the hill that we just saw the fencing go up. Now, Julian, when you talk about tunnels, I mean, are these the types of homes, you know, being as close as they are to the wall that could potentially have that type of system at one point?
I think the terrain here is very different. We're going up a hill where we were earlier that the neighbors mentioned the tunnels. It's usually flood zones where the soil is not as compact.
That makes
This
sense.
is very compact soil. I would doubt it.
Right.
So you were asking if we're just driving around. So do you want to kind of explain to Austin what we're doing right now?
Yeah, so what we're trying to do is give you a perspective, a real perspective of the wall, of the pedestrian fencing, of the security as we move throughout the border between U.S. and Mexico. So where we are right now, and I guess we could, I don't want to try to navigate
Yeah.
up that.
Someone's
But-
asking what city we're in. We're in Nogales, Arizona.
Yeah, and where we are right now, and I'm going to try to mess with our camera here to give you a better perspective. But you know, we're trying to show you the fencing so you get an idea for it. What we found really quickly on our tour is there's different types of fencing everywhere. There's different types of barriers, from large steel beams wrapped with a razor wire like we're seeing in front of us, to vehicle barriers and only barriers, to almost vehicle barriers that are fence posts, almost with you know, wiring between them, to areas that are so rugged there's no fencing at all. So you know, you hear all the politics now about the wall and what is a wall. Well, you know, we're trying to give you perspective of what the situation is currently. And so here in Nogales, this would be the wall, and this is what we've seen as we've navigated east and west throughout this city. So what we're trying to do is not only show you the wall, but how it impacts the city. And Julian's been talking to us about that, how close it is to homes, how close it is to businesses, and its impact on both sides of the border.
Someone said this is crazy that this is a city in the U.S. I thought this was in Mexico. And I feel like we've seen...
Yeah, I mean, what's your perspective on that, Julian? I mean...
Well, I mean, it's one of the characteristics of the border because it's been a complaint from mayors and city councils along American border cities for a long time, that these cities don't always receive the same type of funding for infrastructure as major cities like, say, Austin, Houston, Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not surprising. In fact, I was raised in a neighborhood in New Mexico that looked much like this one. We at the time we didn't have running water. We had water that was not fit to drink, and it struck me even as a child. Well, and this is the United States, no?
Julian, can you kind of describe with the relationship between Border Patrol and local law enforcement, especially in these towns that are just so close to the fence?
Well, it's been my experience that it's a very close-knit relationship. It's a very cordial relationship. And in recent years, it's also been kind of a familiar relationship in the sense that a lot of local police officers eventually apply to the Border Patrol Academy and get in as Border Patrolmen. At the same time, especially in border towns, now that a lot more Hispanics are joining the Border Patrol and other federal agencies. Sometimes you have actual family relationships in which one of your nephews might be a Border Patrol agent and another of your nephews might be an El Paso Police Department officer, for instance.
So Austin's going to step out of the car right now, and he's going to go stand up next to.
Yeah, if you want to take front cam,
I'm
you
take
can
the front
also take
cam.
thermal cam when I go up there.
Okay, I'll do that. He's going to go stand for a height perspective. So he is about 6 feet tall. You can see him walking up there. And again, there's a lot of Border Patrol presence in this town, but to be honest, in this stretch right here, I don't really see any Border Patrol. When we're standing to my right is actually, it looks either like a restaurant or a house. We're going to take, so yeah, so if you can see Austin, he's in the orange shirt right ahead of us. He's about 6 feet tall. So how tall would you say this is? Still 18 feet tall?
That's the same, 18.
The same? And will we see the same fence throughout the entire town, Julian?
For the most part.
For the most part.
Don't you- the other camera? There you
Yeah, so you can kind of see this is our thermal cam, but he's about 6 feet tall. He's kind of walking towards us, so he not as great perspective right now, but it's about 18 feet tall, and a lot of razor wire. More razor wire I think I've seen in this area than I've seen at all in other parts that we've stopped along the way. So that gives you a little bit of a height perspective of how tall this part of the fence is. But to our right, let me see if I can. I'll actually do the street cam, and then I'm going to try to move this to the right so you can kind of see what's to our right. Did you see any Border Patrol when you were over there?
Give me just a second. Let me get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, good question. No Border Patrol up there.
So to my right, I was going to show the roof cam. This is what we're looking at. We're literally sitting outside a residence right
Yeah,
now.
and let me tell you that because when you look to the right around the corner, there is a fence with a very similar razor wire. And there's actually right now, if you zoom in, cats on
oh my
top
gosh,
of the roof
I was
up
like,
there.
what is that? Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to see them up there. Oh, wrong way.
Yeah, right at
But
that
yeah,
top right there.
There are loud dogs out there, and there are, yep, there they are, and yeah, they have their own wall around them, chain link and razor wire at the top of it. So.
Well, and someone's asking what's the history of the wall and when it was first built. Can you talk about that in perspective to this town specifically?
Or what you know about that, Julian?
Well, I'll share whatever I know about this, and this is based on what the neighbors have been telling me in the past couple of weeks. Before 9/11, before security became so prominent, it was mostly chain link. Now there's been several upgrades over the past couple of decades, and you see the standard steel bollard fence, which is very secure and is so impressive because of its height that it also makes a statement.
Yeah, we got, I'm looking now at KXAN's page. Thank you for showing the real deal is one of the comments. Safe travels, and then of course what's going on. So Anna, do you just want to kind of reset the stage for everybody?
Yeah, if you're joining this with us right now, we're on a border tour. We're on day 3 of a 10-day tour. We started in California on Sunday, and today was our first day in Arizona. We actually spent a good portion of earlier today in Gila Bend and right south of Gila Bend, which is, let me see if I can take the, we'll do this again. Right south of Gila Bend at Organ Pipe Cactus National Monument, which looks way different than where we're at right now. Organ Pipe Cactus National Monument.
Yeah, there you go.
A long name. Was a lot of desert and not a lot of
Is that
people.
just brush behind me, guys?
Yeah, I think so.
I can't see anything.
But here, now we're in Nogales, Arizona. We just got here not too long ago.
I'm going to have to do the old 37-point turn.
Yeah,
Give me a second.
We're going to figure this out. We're here in Nogales, and it's a very active town compared to where we were earlier today. And what we just showed you, if we can actually show you the roof cam, or I'll loop back around, is that you're able to get really close to the wall because there's residents on both sides in Mexico and in the U.S. I'm able to do this.
So Ozzy and Julian, we have about 20 more minutes of this. Anywhere you suggest we go, any direction you suggest we go.
Yeah, Nogales, Sonora. No, it was a joke, but It was a joke, but I was in Nogales,
Little kitty
Sonora.
in front of us. Gotta watch out.
Oh. Yeah, I was in Nogales, Sonora just a couple of weeks ago. I was there to do another story. Right now, as we...
I think so, right?
Yeah, I think we're.
Because I came up, so.
Yeah.
Anyway, as we have been reporting for the past couple of months, the migrant surge from Central America has subsided. However, I went to Mexico, to Nogales, Sonora, to do a story on a new surge. This is a surge of Mexican citizens who are leaving their towns in the countryside because there's a renewed drug cartel fighting down there in west central Mexico. So I went to a shelter in Nogales, Sonora,
Yeah.
where a lot of these families are staying, and it was really heartbreaking to see moms, primarily moms with small children, just wanting a chance to plead their case here in the U.S. for asylum. However, that's going to be very difficult, and what I found is that a lot of the families don't really know what the asylum laws cover. So it's really difficult to see that their efforts are pretty much ending at the border.
Yeah. We're doing the wide cam back in the car. That is really interesting, Julian.
Huggins to the right, okay?
We're trying to navigate where we're going right now. And if you are just tuning in with us, we'll be live for about 15, 20 more minutes or so. Use the hashtag border report. I'm trying to go through. We have very spotty service right now, but I'm trying to go through the questions right now on Facebook. So if you do have questions, let me know, or you can tweet at me at Anna E. Warnicki, or use the hashtag border report, and I'll try to field those for you as we do this. I'll give you the street view real quick. Ozzy is giving us directions in the back right now. Where are we heading to, Ozzy? We're going to go back to the wall. So we are seeing different areas. Yeah, it's hard because we keep driving as much as we can down near where the fence is, but then it gets cut off because of residents or just housing and stuff like that. So we are doing our best to navigate our way back there.
Yeah, from what we've seen, Julian, and granted we've only been in a small section, but I mean this would be a somewhat economically depressed community.
Well, you're talking about the border. You see this a lot. I wouldn't call it economically depressed, but it's certainly not suburban Austin.
Right. So we're navigating up this hill, trying to find any pedestrian fencing. Ozzy says we're about 3 blocks, and I believe we're about to run into Border Patrol here.
Okay, yeah. Actually, I'm gonna.
So we're looping around, right?
No, we're good.
Okay. Oh wow. Is this the border? Is this a real road right here?
So if I go to roof cam right now.
Kind of is.
Okay. Well,
Famous last words.
We'll let our security guys
Right
have
ahead
a
of us.
conversation with them. Anna, I think, is that a wall over to our right?
It's so dark, I honestly can't even see.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that is. Right down there to the right. Let's see if we
That
can.
looks different, doesn't it?
That looks kind of what it was like over by the port of entry, to be honest. Just without the razor wire.
Can you get down there and get a? Let's see.
Would the thermal cam be better for this one?
No.
It's just really dark down there.
Yeah. See if we can get past. Yeah, I'm having trouble seeing it on here.
There it is. Tilt down.
Yeah, with all the lights, I'm just not sure that it's going to show it. Let's see. Yeah, there we go, Anna. If we want to...
Do the roof cam right now?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Good job.
I'm not seeing... That's the no-climb stuff at the top you were talking about,
Yes.
Ozzy?
Yes.
Yeah, and perhaps that is wire down there. It's kind of difficult to see. If you want to go back to front cam, Anna will try to navigate wherever we are.
We'll also try to show you guys this tomorrow during the daylight so you can kind of get a better glimpse. I know it's getting a little bit dark out here.
Yeah, we think we're good.
Yeah.
We have security with us, and they'll generally talk with Border Patrol and make sure that we are in an okay spot. Let's see if we can get that view. Yeah, so there you see a decent view down there. Let me see if I can. Do you just want to reset the scene for us, Anna?
Yeah, so if you're joining us right now, we are on day 3 of a 10-day border tour. We're here in Nogales, Arizona, and what you're looking at right now, we're sitting in Nogales in our car, but we're looking into Nogales, Mexico, actually, and you kind of can see, oh yeah, that's the fence right there. You actually can see people playing or walking the streets right behind the fence, but they're in Mexico. We're sitting in the U.S. right now. This is our first day in Arizona on this tour of the border, and we're just getting a look at what the different towns along the way are like, and talking to people and talking to folks who live here on the border and seeing what they have to say, and just looking at the different barriers along the way, because I think that's been a very interesting part of it.
Yeah, we had border reports, or I keep saying that,
Border
Patrol
Patrol. Yeah.
just zipped by, but didn't seem too concerned with us. So
They could have talked to our security, so there could have been that, but...
Yeah, let's try to see where they came from. See where this takes us. Ozzy, this is actually on Google Maps, though.
I'm going to go back to the street view
back to
real
the
quick.
front cam.
Yeah.
So as long as it's on Google Maps.
Closer to the border wall here.
Okay.
Okay, great. Yeah, it's really hard to see because it's dark out. It's hard to see for us too.
Yeah, I do have my brights on, but I'm okay with it. Don't think we're going to be bothered.
But left,
anyway.
our left view right now, that's Nogales, U.S.
Yes. To the right should be up on the wall here. Pretty soon.
Okay.
Should be up on the hill.
That may be a truck up there.
This could be
Border
Border
Patrol.
Patrol. Yeah.
I'm going to turn off my brights. You did the same thing.
Border
Ozzy
Patrol.
just said border. It is tough to say Border Patrol when you've been saying
Border report
all
for so
day.
long, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, here we go. Okay, so I think that this might be Border Patrol up here that we're approaching, who also have their brights on. Let's see if I can...
No, that's going to be a floodlight in front of us. I think
No,
over
to
here.
the left, right
Yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah.
Is it, yeah. Hold on.
That would be. Okay, we got a cattle guard.
Yeah, the wall's right above us. Maybe.
Oh, right. Is
Look.
that it right there? Yeah.
Right up here to our right.
Yes.
Yeah, and that would definitely be Border Patrol up there. So we'll come down here and give people a perspective of the wall.
Well, look at here to our 3 o'clock. Major openings.
Hold on, this is a terrible
Really?
view right now. Can we,
Maybe pan the camera over here.
yeah, I'm trying. The camera is doing some crazy things right now on the roof.
Face the vehicle towards the front, Austin.
Yeah, sounds good.
There we go. Here we go.
I'm about to mess you up though a little bit.
Yeah, now we are
You see it over
doing some
to
funky
1
things.
o'clock?
Okay.
Oh wow, yeah. These are like open gates or
Could be
something
like
down there.
flooding, perhaps?
Yeah, here. Let me yeah, right there. Go back where you were and then zoom in. No. Yeah, let's just show that real quick. That's a good idea.
Okay, so this is what we're looking at right here.
So this is the wall in front of us, and what I want to do here,
So Ozzy, what were you talking about just now?
if you want to go to the front cam, or
Street view?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Let's see if we can find it down here. It's gonna
Oh, it's
be,
right there. Yeah. Just keep
Hold
zooming
on.
in.
Yeah, I mean it looks right. Like that's
We're
just
gonna
straight
take
up.
on the roof cam. That's what we're looking at right now. So what is that
It's kinda
that you were talking
looks
about?
like floodgates to me.
Floodgates is what you're talking about.
Julian, you may not be able to see this very well from you are, but I mean it looks like open gate.
It does look like a gate.
Yeah, like people could just come across there. Now, granted, right behind us up this hill is a Border Patrol agent who is watching everything that's happening. But nevertheless, that does appear to be pretty open down there. Very interesting.
Now there's a wall. It goes up the hill, right? Here to our 3 o'clock.
Oh, there's someone
Let's
coming
see.
right here to our right. So do you want to back up a little bit?
Yeah, I will. Do I have room behind me? Let's see. That's a gate right
There
there.
is a gate. Yes.
Yeah.
I would not back up.
We're not going any farther
Oh,
there.
this is just
Somebody hanging out.
someone hanging out.
It's so dark. Let's see.
Let's see.
So that
Yes,
is.
everyone's asking what you were just showing. Why is it open?
Yeah.
Even if it is a floodgate, why is it open? Maybe.
I wonder if our security guys.
I'm gonna go ask them.
Yeah,
Maybe.
they may know.
Jump out
So
of-
that's wall right there. Whoa, you just.
Ooh, I just.
Anna, you touched the wall
I
cam.
got out
Okay.
there. Hold on.
Yeah, that would be it going up the hill there. Let's see if we can get it on camera. What Ozzy just noted is the wall kind of continues up the hill back here. But yeah, it's really difficult to see. I'm going to take you back to where we saw what appears to kind of be those open gates down there. Let's see. And we have security guys who they've had many interactions with Border Patrol before. They have that familiarity. So we're asking them what they know about that situation. Again, appears to be open gates there. And as I noted, at the top of a hill behind us, and I don't have an easy way to show you at this moment, is a Border Patrol agent keeping watch. But yeah, what appear to be open gates down there. Let's see what our thermal looks like right now. Thermal. Can we get down there? No, let's zoom. Hey Ozzy, how do I pan down on thermal?
Just hold down. It'll slowly. It'll take you down.
So I was talking
It's
to
zooming in and out. but-
our security team, who is former Border Patrol, and he was saying that these are debris and floodgates, and they're open likely because someone was down there inspecting that area. But you'll see them a lot when there are areas where there's, if you can't even see down here, but right below us there is a lot of water.
Yeah, I saw that
And
down
so
there.
that's why those are there. And typically they're closed. He said there's probably just someone down there checking out the area, or if they're right after a rainfall or something like that, is typically when they would open them.
Yeah, again we're seeing kind
And
of
there's a
those
lot of
open
mud out
gates.
here. We weren't here earlier today, but maybe it just rained.
Yeah, and we'll take you back to our thermal. So with this camera, you'd be able to see if there was any activity down there right now, and not picking up anything down there. Granted, that's not right where the open gates are, but you know, you kind of get the idea. I'm gonna take our other camera over here because there's a floodlight, and get a different perspective of the wall. We'll take people there. So again, this is Nogales, Arizona. Just trying to give you a perspective of the wall here, how it looks, how it's built, how it's enforced, and its impact on the city of Nogales down here. Guys, I think it's time for us to head out and head towards our hotel and call it a night. So do we want to kind of begin the process of wrapping it up?
Yeah, we'll begin it. Let's navigate ourselves so we know exactly where
Yeah,
we're going to get
Ozzy
out of
maybe
here
help
first.
get us out of here. Yeah, you were right though. Wide open down there. It makes you wonder what's on the other side, and if that would be easily accessed. We appreciate everybody though. I mean,
Thanks for joining in, you guys. I know there's a lot of questions fielding in, and we couldn't get to a lot of them because our service was kind of spotty, but we'll read them tonight and we'll try to get back to you guys tomorrow. We do plan to do this every day on our tour, and again, this is day 3 of a 10-day tour. We started in California. We're heading to Brownsville, Texas. A couple of you guys were, saying we got to get over to Texas. We are heading that way. We're currently, though, this is our first day in Arizona. We're staying here tonight, and we're going to check out this area again tomorrow in the daylight. It's obviously a little hard to see right now, but
yeah, let's talk real quick as we wrap up, as we kind of preview what we're going to do in Nogales. Julian, do you want to kind of let people know what you're going to be working on in town tomorrow?
Yes, I'm going to be talking to some more of the neighbors along the wall to document their experience and share their feelings. Like I mentioned earlier, I already was here 2 weeks ago, and I talked to several neighbors. So I have a pretty good picture of what life is like along the wall. And I'll be glad to share those observations and document those quotes for our internet readers in our audience.
And you can see that those stories and everything on borderreport.com. There's a lot of really interesting stories that Julian's been working on the website right now, from Arizona and from California from our first couple of days of the tour. So check out that. If you have questions or comments or anything like that, you can always use the hashtag Border Report. We'll take a look at that as well.
Border Patrol up here to our left.
Yeah, well, let's do.
Am I still going straight, Ozzy?
Yes, keep going.
Okay.
Give you
These are
kind of a
just
street cam again.
Yeah,
of
and
what
we're seeing a little
looking at.
lightning out there too, guys. Again, yeah, we have a little bit of wall to our left. Let's see if we can grab that, Anna. Here,
Hold on, I'm gonna.
Where are we pointed at? Oh, there's our Border Patrol friend. We could show him real quick,
Yeah,
I
there
guess.
you go. He is looking at us. Like,
Yeah.
what are you guys doing?
He's like, hey, I hope you're not showing me on camera. So
Yeah,
we'll
they
get
don't
him
like to
on.
be photographed without permission.
Yeah, so we will not stay
We'll
on
not
that
do
shot.
yeah.
There, back there. That would be some of the wall back there. And Anna, what are you working on tomorrow?
Tomorrow I'll be talking to a cattle rancher in this area who lives very close to the border, and kind of talk to him about how he deals with all of. Oh, here we go.
It would help if I put it in drive, so please continue. It's the little things.
He says that he's concerned. He says there's a lot of people who cross into his area, and he's concerned for their safety, but he's also concerned for his livestock. So I'll talk to him and see what he has to say. So we'll have kind of a downtown perspective, but also a rural perspective of Nogales, Arizona tomorrow.
Excellent. Yeah, and again, we've had people saying, "Hey, what are you doing? What's the reason for all this?" And really, the reason is just put the politics aside and document stories along the U.S.-Mexico border. So that's what we're doing. We're trying to bring the experience to you as we experience it. So as we drove into town today, Julian has familiarity with Nogales. The other three of us in the vehicle didn't. So as we got a chance to see it, you got a chance to see it as well. We want to make this an interactive experience, of really discovery, right? Because it's new for us and hopefully new for you along the way. So
follow along with us tomorrow. We'll bring you more content, and again, we'll show you this area when it's a little bit. You can see a little bit more when it's daylight. So we'll show you that tomorrow. But we look forward to having you guys follow along with us, and we'll see you tomorrow.